America, you're about to witness three total strangers,
A musician, an artist, and a business professional.
we brought them together to talk about a really hard subject that they had no clue what it was before they got here.
All in the hopes that we can teach you, America, that we can discuss the most controversial topics.
Without being jerks to each other. Imagine that! So stick around, watch the fireworks, because we're about to go live. Welcome to the Art of Dispute, the only show where you can be friended and offended, all in the same hour. Right? You just like sitting at home, chilling, eating the Doritos, sitting on the couch, channel surfing. Oh, this looks interesting. That's a good point that just got made there. I literally hate everything they said. All these people are idiots.
Fair.
It happens.
It happens.
It happens. Right. America, we have a problem. You know what I'm talking about. We lovingly refer to it as the zero to Nazi effect on this show. It is a scientific, precise measurement of time. The length of time it takes to go from zero in a conversation where you're like having a good conversation to you're a Nazi. I will now go outside, set fire to your car, riot in the streets, slander your mom.
I like that one. We get a little bit of ourselves, though.
We catch
yeah,
fire.
we do. Even for the show, because our panel might not be as diverse for the topic. We might not have all the demographics here. We have 3 people, you know. So what we say is make sure that that viewpoint is on our show by commenting underneath this video on our Facebook or going to our group, putting your stuff, your opinions into our group page, and that way every opinion can be heard and seen, and not just the 3 people that are here today.
Right on, right on.
Sure.
Absolutely.
I can already hear it, you know, on this show. Somebody somewhere is, you know, there's no scientist on this show.
Deal.
And on the other side, there's like, well, there's no scholarly theologians on this show. No.
Maybe not this episode. Not this episode.
We got it covered.
Yeah, this episode's a little
We got it covered. All right. First guest up, Mr. Daryl Douglas.
Yes, sir. What's going on, guys?
I Come Alive. That is your artist name.
Absolutely.
We had the honor of having you on, and you were such a killer guest, and we had you back right away.
That's right.
And it's an absolute honor to be here, man. I'm definitely excited, especially digging on today's topic. It's going to be great.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun topic, man.
For sure.
And I got to say, killer performance. Your last show you were on, man, I dug the tune. Really had a cool vibe to it.
Yes, sir.
Commented to the wife, which was cool. I said it really reminded me, and I asked you about it.
Oh, yeah.
All right? I said it
Absolutely.
really reminded me of a band called Death Cab for Cutie. And you're like, oh, I listen to them all the time.
Yeah, Ben Gibbard is a G.
Yeah. Cool stuff. Same kind of vibe to it. I really liked it. So, and as soon as I told her that and I was playing the song, she's like, totally can hear that. So, yeah,
Excellent.
good stuff, man.
back.
All right, people can find you on Spotify.com/I Come Alive Band. So check that out. We got it on the screen. One funny thing about Daryl that most people don't know: it's really rude not to return the shower to the bath position.
Now, let me explain that. It's just one of those things. If you ever go to take a shower and you turn it on, wait.
Oh yeah.
That's true.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
this is wrong.
who did that?
Yeah.
Who
this is
did
wrong.
It
that?
happens at hotels and stuff
All
like that
the
too,
time.
when it
It's
shoots
so
out
rude.
into
That's
the bath.
horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so rude.
How many times do you have to do that before you realize you just gotta do one of these?
But it's early in the morning, and you know you got your foot prepped and ready underneath the spout
True.
to get the temp and everything.
Yeah.
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 That is rude, though. Yeah.
That is rude. Up next,
Gotcha.
Miss Peyton Weaver.
Hey, Joe.
What is going on?
Oh, you know, living life. How are you today?
I'm happy to be here. Since Peyton just showed up for moral support for behind-the-scenes staff, and there was an opening on the show at a very last minute, she was thrust into her new role of stardom, where she will now be discovered and
You
go
know.
on to be famous.
That's what I'm banking on. That's,
Yes.
I was secretly hoping the whole time you
Yes.
didn't ask me. instead
That
of
was
just
all part of
working
the
the
master
cameras.
plan.
So, yeah.
Little do we know, she knifed the tires of the other guest who was supposed to be here. In fact, that's the one funny thing. It's right there.
Two funny things. Yeah.
Yeah. She says one funny thing about her that most people don't know. I can't whistle to save my life.
I can't. I really can't.
Wow.
It's just an art I never mastered. No, it's really hard too because we've got a dog at home, and it's he does not respond to me at all.
Oh,
It's
man.
tough. We got to call the husband to call the dog.
There you go.
You know.
Understandable.
You whistle to call the husband.
Yeah.
So you can whistle.
You
So
can whistle, you just gotta
Yeah.
call your husband.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yes.
Right on.
Yeah.
That's a funny stuff.
Right on.
That's a good
Thanks.
one.
All right. Up next, Mr. Robert Cooley Booley Doty.
What's up, man?
Is it Doty or is it Dottie?
Doty.
Doty.
Oh, yes, thank you, sir.
Got it. Right on. Right on.
Got that the
Artist
first time.
name Cooley Booley.
Yes, sir.
Look, how in the world did you come up with that?
Man, so it's a crazy story real quick. I used to be country boy, but there's a lot of country boys in the music entertainment industry, so I had to rebrand, and it just like slapped me in the face one day and said, hey, I'm gonna run with it. So had a whole CB brand, you know what I mean? So
Right.
wanted to keep something with it. I'm originally from Louisiana, so it has that,
CB. I get
you
it.
know what I mean?
Right
Yeah.
on.
There was a bunch of names I went through was for CB that was all horrible, by the way. That one just kind of stuck with me, so.
Oh,
You can only
nice.
imagine.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Website cooleybooley.com.
Yes,
You can
sir.
find him all social media sites at It's Cooley Booley. Love it.
Yes.
And he hates dirty shoes.
Oh, it's the worst. Oh my God. Tells a lot about a person.
Okay.
Look at their
They
shoes.
pop
I'm
them up
telling
real
you.
quick. Oh, Lord.
Everybody's looking
I
at
got a
everybody's
really-
shoes.
Hiding there.
I'm a really like big sneaker head. You know, I got all kinds of sneakers, but
You
like
gotta have the clean sneaker.
if I wear them,
gotta have the
when I
white
come home, I clean them
trim.
and then put them back in the box and literally put them back.
Wow.
There, so.
So
Wow.
let me see. Oh yeah.
Dedication
Nice
to
and
clean
shiny.
shoes.
Clean sneakers, fresh at all
I
times.
love it, man. All right, so we got a fun topic today, guys.
Yeah.
This is a pretty heavy duty. I mean, this is a question like man has been asking for millennia.
Yes.
You know, it really has. So we're gonna solve that here today. So you guys make sure you stick around. So
11 minutes. Just
yes,
hammer it out.
solving world problems. That's what we do here on this show. What do you got? World hunger. That's up next episode. All right. Basically, here's the question, guys. Can science and religion coexist? Can they play along? Can they play nice? Can't we all just get along? You know,
Wow.
give me your 1 minute bullet point. What's your thoughts on the subject, kind of a thing, deal. Just go around and then we'll dive into the topic.
My viewpoint, honestly, is that's a resounding no. Because of the base of the way that the mentality and the processes in these things work. I mean, with religious, it's faith in what you can't see, what you can't understand, and with science, it's quite the opposite. The understanding is made upon tangible, hard things.
All right. Hey,
Gotcha. I think I'm going to say yes. I think they can. I think if you really think about it, science, in my mind, is born from sort of those same religious principles, wanting to understand things that you don't understand, but you can only take that so far, right? If you want to go with the chicken and the egg argument or anything like that, at some point somebody had to create whichever one came first, right? So I think if done right, I think they can not only coexist but kind of reaffirm each other.
okay.
I really think that we're living it now, you know what I mean? Like, I think that we are living both religion and scientific times, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
because we're discovering new things all the time that only science can explain, you know, and still if we go back to religion and different things like that, that goes back still far way before us in our time, you know, so I think we're living it now. I think it is existing in the now. And going forward, I think it's going to be more open because everybody wants to know more truth now. I don't think everybody refers back to religion as much anymore because there's I don't know, the new way of thinking and, you know, the facts and different things that get discovered every day, you know what I mean? So
Right on.
I don't know.
All right, so let me ask you guys a question.
Yeah.
Very early on in the scientific age or development of science, science was really born out of the religious desire to know and understand God via His creation.
Sure.
Just like you would get to know a musician more through studying his music, an artist through studying his artwork. Similarly, that's where science really took off, was from, and it's not just like a specific religion, but across many, many different cultures.
Right.
So they wanted to know more about God.
Right, science now, though, I mean, that's more about disproving, I feel. I mean, it may have started one way, but...
Do you guys feel like the role has?
That's a good point.
Do you guys feel like that the role has reversed? It's flip flopped, and if so, why? Ooh, that was a good question. I wonder what they're gonna say. Let's stick around and find out. We'll be right back. All right, so let me ask you guys a question.
Yeah.
Very early on in the scientific age, or development of science, science was really born out of the religious desire to know and understand God via His creation.
Sure.
Just like you would get to know a musician more through studying his music, an artist through studying his artwork. Do you guys feel
That's a
like
good
the
point.
role
That's
has?
a good point.
Do you guys feel like that the role has reversed? It's flip flopped, and if so, why? If it started out being motivated, driven by kind of a desire to know more about God, do you feel like it, as Chris said now, has that switched to more of a
Yeah, I think
desire
so.
to disprove God?
I think more so nowadays because of the technology and all the advancements that we have now, and we discover new things all the time. So I think more and more people are more like, why are we thinking about this? Because a lot of us have religious upbringings, you know what I mean? And you think about something for so long, but then when we see all these advancements and different things in technology, and it makes us wonder, like, is this really the case? You know what I mean? Like, so I think that kind of, like what you were saying, kind of taps into that. Like, I think people want to know more now just to figure out where did we really come from, you know what I mean? Because that's science involved.
Right,
Yeah. So are we really from our God, the creator? Is there, that could be anyone. It doesn't necessarily have to be religious though, you know what I mean? It could be a person, place, or thing, so I think that's where the science comes in, where we're trying to figure this out, so it's kind of my...
Peyton, how about you?
Yeah, I agree. I think it kind of has gotten away into a sense of trying to disprove, but to me, I hate that the focus has to be juxtaposing science and religion, right? Because I think religion is about so much more than just dispelling that too. It means something different to each person, and it encompasses personal, morals, and how you want to raise families, how you want to go about through your life. I think religion can fulfill a wider range than just what the scientific specific questions
I agree with that.
really answer for a person. So that's part of the reason
Yeah.
I think that they can coexist, because I don't think they have to constantly fill that same void.
I honestly believe that with history, you could step out in the olden days and say, the earth doesn't revolve around the sun and be murdered by the Catholic Church. And then we've got today, where we've got the Hadron Collider, and we're investigating the God particle. And it's like, hey, is this something we should be meddling with from a religious standpoint? What if we undo the fabric of existence? So that rub will always be there because of that core value.
I think it's fascinating. You brought up a really
That's
great
real,
point.
yeah.
Right? I think it's fascinating that it happens on all sides. In other words, there was certainly a time period, as you just indicated, right, to question anything that was of the dogma of popular religious belief, was, we'll put you on a stake and, call you a witch and burn you, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Whatever. But you intellectually have the same kind of a thing. It's way more polite. Nobody's burning on the stakes now.
Absolutely.
But you have the same ostracization.
Zero to Nazi effect?
Zero to Nazi effect.
That was the
Absolutely.
law of the
Yeah,
land.
I
You have
agree.
the same ostracizing happening intellectually now, where if you mention God in any capacity,
Right.
and not even I'm not trying to argue a specific God or anything else,
Yeah.
right? Just to talk about it from an intelligent standpoint, it's like, oh no, you can't do that.
Almost no one voids you as an
Right.
opinion because
Right.
it's a faith-based.
Right.
Correct.
Do you guys have any idea why do you think that is?
It's honestly because of that division. I genuinely believe that, and it's
Say that again.
It's genuinely because of that division, honestly. And that's one of those things that's always existed, and typically there's very few that are on the fence with both. When it comes to religion and science, people typically gravitate to one or the other specifically. And very, very hardcore. And that polar opposite is where the balance makes it so hard to seesaw and balance that.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. I mean, I was raised. Sorry, I don't know what to
No,
say, but
please.
I was raised hardcore Catholic. You know what I mean? So, as I grew and kind of found my own truths in life, as we all do as we get older and become wiser, I even have that thought like, what if? And I feel like that's where the science maybe comes from. You know what I mean? So, what if? And we live in way different times with the technology and everything. We can find out. Back when you guys were saying, way back in history, like religion was the law of the land. So if you go against this law, then yeah, you're gonna suffer the consequences. But now it's more, we have man-made laws versus religious laws, or But some people kind of walk that fine medium where you got a bit of both, like what you were saying. But it's almost universal law. We know right from wrong. You know what I mean? Everybody has that distilled in them. But does that make you a religious person? You know what I mean?
We had a whole other
Deflecting
show
with
about
a question.
No, that's good though. Yeah. And I mean, because there's one of those statements that, as a philosopher, makes me step up a little bit and say, you asserted that we all know right from wrong, right? And I think most people argue that. But if there is no God, on what basis do we draw the conclusion that there is right and wrong?
Right.
From a purely evolutionary standpoint of thinking, right and wrong is determined by whatever is best for me.
For that person, right?
So you say stealing is wrong. I'm like, hey, stealing's great for me. I have your car. You don't.
Right.
That's what society would
I think
say,
you're kind of
hey,
stupid
that's
for
wrong.
having bought the car in the first place. You could have just stole your own.
Right.
I said, well, that's not good for society. What if the whole society thinks that? We all play along.
Yeah.
Now my society is
That's
bouncing
true.
up against another society. Our society thinks stealing cars is really fun, right? So now we have all y'all's cars. Y'all are just a bunch of idiots without cars, right?
Right.
On what basis do you say it's wrong?
Right.
Right.
That's true. That's true.
I believe, because I'm a very spiritual person, I
Yeah.
believe the very fact that people make that statement, we all know right from wrong, is in court, it's referred to as a corroborating evidence. Right?
Absolutely.
It's not in and of itself a fact or evidence, but I believe it's a corroborating evidence for the proof of God. We all do know it. We all have a conscience. We all do know
Yeah,
right from wrong. I know where it comes
Right.
from. If you don't believe in God, you don't have an answer for that question.
Right.
So,
It doesn't come from watching other people and getting hurt yourself.
so again, that goes go back to the stealing the car.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Who's hurt? The weaker person.
Right.
Sorry.
Sorry, you're weak.
Right. So then
I have
society,
your car.
society says, well, there's all these people getting, feeling like they're weak.
So we all need to steal
So
cars.
we just implement a government that's going to stop
Right.
people from cars.
We need to be the society that steals cars from the weaker nation next to us.
That's Sparta, Rome.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
Germany.
The stronger, it's, again, that just goes back to me. I'm like, hey, that's the result of evolutionary thinking. The
Yeah.
strongest survive.
Yeah.
Right. So, anyway,
Very juicy.
America.
we're already coming up. We're already coming up on a hard break. Like we have to take a commercial break for sponsors, that sort of thing, to keep the lights on. I always try to leave the before a break with a question here. We've kind of touched on, like, this is where it originated. There's a rub between the two. But I want you guys to kind of dwell on and think about when we come back from the break, is that if it started there, if scientists, like, I really think it was more structural, that the organizations of religion and the organizations of science have more of a beef than the individual players in the system.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, like, the Galileos and those people who are just like going, wait a minute, I'm very religious, and I came up with this idea that says that the sun is the center of the universe, not the earth. Why are y'all pissed at me? Right? Let's dwell on that when we come back. What do you guys think about that? Do you think it's more of a societal, structural entity than an individual thing?
I certainly do.
But we'll answer that when we come back from the break. We'll be right back.
Do you have a sick roof? Well, DR Roofing Services can help. We will examine your roof, diagnose the problem, and prescribe a solution. Does your home need a facelift? DR Roofing Services offers a variety of general contracting services to get your home happy and healthy again. Honest, reliable, and trustworthy. DR Roofing Services. We make house calls.
Welcome back to the show. Big show. Really big show. That's because I'm old. Y'all just witnessed old right there. That was all an old reference. Egg McMahon there, I think it was.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Ed Sullivan, not Ed McMahon.
Ooh.
Wow.
Everybody agreed with you.
And we all just said yeah.
I'm so old. I just had a senile moment and forgot the guy's name and named him somebody else. So that's double old. All right. We were talking about a really heavy-duty topic. We're talking about can science and religion coexist? Having a great dialogue. And just before the break, asked you guys, is it more an institutional thing or an individual thing?
And if it is, though, is it institutional because you feel like the people in power are threatened by losing followers, losing power, right? Or is it because the individual has found the truth?
It's a good question. I would like to think it's the second, but I think it's more the first, personally. In my opinion, I think it's that in the information age we live in, that zero to Nazi effect that you were just talking about, it's that the most extreme points on both sides are what really kind of rise to the surface and generate the dialogue. Unfortunately, sometimes the detrimental dialogue, right, that makes this question so hard to sit here and talk about. But I think, if you think about the most extreme viewpoint to the scientific point is, you believe in, let's say, creation is only the Big Bang Theory, nothing more, nothing less, and you give no leeway to that. On the spiritual side, you say, no, the world was created in 7 days, and that's that, and there's no leeway on that side. Those two extreme points are probably never going to find that middle ground in that way. But I think the individual is much more willing to sit here and have these kind of discussions and find that individual ground.
Very good point. I definitely, especially when we're talking about the entities of each of these and their influence on the person, I think that even with the institution itself, because it's human-based, it's fallible, just like we all are. So that's when you can have moments where you have a parent that wants to pray a disease away, as opposed to, in immunizations and things of that nature. And on the other end, where things are completely calculated to be that there is no hope from a scientific standpoint, there is no faith behind that, there is nothing that's not tangible. And so it's a very extreme on both cases, but the actual institution itself is what's feeding and furthering that disconnection from the middle ground.
That's a
I
really
agree.
Really good points there. Kind of on that note. Oh yeah,
You have
sorry.
something to say on that?
No,
just
go ahead,
jumped
go
in.
ahead. No, that's heavy. That's really real what you said, because you have to look at it again from the human aspect. So.
Yeah.
Kind of a funny, geeky science nerdy thing to mention though. My background was psychology, and I just geek out on studying the mind and what all the mind does. And it's interesting that we have the fear, flight, or fight reaction response, and we see the saber tooth, and we have that series of reactions: freeze. Oh, he saw us. Now we have to run. Oh, he caught us. Now we have to fight. Right.
Right.
So that's been programmed for forever. Right. But the crazy thing is that if you measure the brain and how the brain responds in that process, it responds exactly the same way to a contradictory idea.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
And I think it's like we have that response because it's programmed into us to protect us.
It's attacking your moral fortitude or your ideas or
Right,
your
exactly.
faith or
Yeah.
So whatever our belief is,
Right.
whether it's a scientific belief or whether it's a religious belief,
Yeah.
if we're presented with something that is contradictory to our belief, our reaction is just the same as if we saw a saber tooth, right? And we freeze, we flee, and we fight.
and then the zero Nazi effect happens.
Yes,
Mhm.
it's kind of fascinating,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
So on that front, with that in mind, do you think it's possible that the difference between the two spheres, science, religion, the contradiction or the fight where the rub comes in is just a lack of creativity? In other words, like their ability to see a solution that says this fits both ways. If we just have an open enough mind, can we see both ways? And I'll give you a geeky, nerdy science example, right? Science says universe is 13.6 billion years old, give or take. Earth is 4.5 to 6 billion years old, give or take. Bible, you read it, we have 6 creation days. You count back somewhere like 6,000 years, right? Big freaking difference, right?
Right.
So I'll give you one nerdy example. God says, let there be light. If we were there, we had a time machine, we could zip back, and we're there with all our cool scientific gear, we can hop out, test everything, that sort of thing. The moment says God says, let there be light, we test it. How old would the light be?
Okay.
Because the nearest light source is the sun, right?
Right.
Science says that takes 8.5 minutes for the light to travel from the sun to the earth, right?
Right.
So by science, it would have to be at least 8.5 minutes. Yet, as soon as he said, let there be light, there's light. So how old was it? Was it just an instant as soon as he said it, or was it 8.5 minutes? And would we both be right?
Where did it come from?
If one said 8.5
making that
minutes and one
assertion,
said, right?
Are you following the book? That's what I'm saying. If
So,
you're-
and that's
if
the
you're
second
so
part.
far,
That's
right,
the second
yeah.
part. So,
Right,
so
that-
let's
that'd be-
hold.
right.
Let's hold on that part. So the first part is,
Okay.
are we just lacking creativity to see those kind of answers? See what I'm saying?
Okay.
To where both are joined. And so let's share your thoughts on that, and then we'll come back and hit his part.
Roger.
I think that's where the science comes in again. So I don't know if it's creativity or more so because everything's a story. Even the Bible or whatever, everything's a story. Even science, it tells a story. So we have to. I guess that's where the medium comes in, because whose story is actually right? You know what I mean? So is it religion? Is it science? Again, I think.
Or is it both? Or is it both?
It could be both, So, again, I kind of, like I said, I grew up hardcore Catholic, so we have those principles and morals distilled in us. But as we grow older, then we see other things and other truths and different things. So, again, I think it's a bit of both, But I don't think it's creativity, because this story had to come from somewhere,
Right.
So.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think
Yeah.
maybe not so much creativity as maybe just a lack of willingness to accept that there are things you can't understand,
Right.
or that you don't understand yet. Whether
And to
it's
be
just
clear,
because
when I say creativity, I'm saying for the guy that's a scientist saying absolutely no religion because religion
Sure.
says 6,000 years, and religion
Yeah.
guy is saying absolutely science because science says 4.5 billion years, right?
right,
If there was a person in the middle saying, I'm going to be creative and I'm not going to be closed-minded to either idea, is there an answer that answers both? And that's where I gave the example of light and saying the religious guy's right and the scientist guy's right. Because if I measured how long it took for the light to get here, it's 8.5 minutes. That's the answer. And it's correct. Right? But if I'm the religious guy and I answer the question, God said that, and it was there, and he already had the distance span. So both are right.
Right.
Are they just lacking creativity to see the answers that actually answer both?
Do we have anything that physically goes back these millions of years that can prove that it was the galaxy or our planet is this many years old? You know, how do we know that? You know, again, religion is something, this is faith.
Science has an answer. Religion has an answer.
So, but
I think that creativity, it only goes so far though if people aren't willing to accept that answer is good enough, right? And I think that's where that disconnect still kind of lies. I think that creative answer could satisfy both if people were humble enough on both sides to accept. Maybe science doesn't get the answer.
Woo, I think you said something big right there. If they were humble, that's where the amygdala comes in again, and the lizard brain. It says, no, I have to fight you because you proposed a different idea.
Right? I definitely think it's that lack of yielding on either side.
Agreed.
Yeah. All right, so now to Chris's.
And finding that creative outlet, aren't you searching for a way to disprove? I mean, technically, I see like if you're using that creative mind, it says it could be both. And then, so now you're like, well, that's not really believing in God.
Right. Ooh, that was a good question. I wonder what they're gonna say. Let's stick around and find out. We'll be right back.
How much does it cost you to watch TV? The average household pays between $100 and $150 every month. Finally fed up with the rising cost of cable and satellite? Cut the cord and start watching the channels you want at a fraction of the cost. With IXQ TV, you'll have access to thousands of live TV channels, including sports, movies, news, premium networks, kids channels, and even local channels for as low as $39 a month. Stream in HD on your TV, tablet, phone, or even computer with multiple devices streaming at the same time. IXQ TV requires no contracts or credit checks, no installation or cancellation fees, no bogus surcharges or hidden fees. $39 a month means $39 a month. Say goodbye to high cable bills forever. Visit mycablebillstinks.com today.
The Art of Dispute and all other artists recorded by Maddox Studios. By artists, for artists.
And find that creative outlet, aren't you searching for a way to disprove? I mean, technically, I see like if you're using that my creative mind, says it could be both. And then, so now you're like, well, that's not really believing in God.
Right.
So,
but to chime in on that point, I honestly believe that because I get where you're coming from. Am I not being faithful by seeking answers otherwhere and by doing that? I believe that God, one of the most beautiful gifts that God could possibly bestow onto its human creations is freedom of will. And
free will.
we need to be able to use that to try to understand and validate and explore. And that's where the faith comes in.
Okay. And so now I was thinking more like he gave you free will so that you could exercise it to believe in him and not go searching other things. So that's what gets you into heaven, right? Like,
I don't think he gave, my just personal opinion on it, I don't think he gave you the free will so that you find a way to believe in him, but so that you find that way to find honesty that leads you to him ultimately by your own discovery, if that makes sense. I don't think it's so much to impose a will as to help you discover yours and help you find what that truth is.
Yeah, I think like, I don't know if people go as far as to do it to disprove, maybe the religious side, because I think it's a bit of both, you know what I mean? Like this this air we're breathing, we're walking. This is a miracle that happened that we're all even here. You know, so this happened because of big explosion. You know what I mean? This, you know, or somebody came and, hey, you know, let me turn this button on and create life. I don't know if anybody we can really truly, you know what I mean? So I think it's okay if you believe in science, you believe in religion, no matter what, it should be okay. You know what I mean? Because we're all here as long as we're trying to have a common goal of doing good and you know, moving forward as a race. I think, why not coexist?
In your search, and if you find something that you felt completely disproved that there was a creator, how would you feel? Because going into the next search, I mean, are you going to go search for him and to prove it right after that? Or are you going to stop?
I mean,
well, that depends on the person.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things. I'll give you a great sort of parallel that's in line with what you're talking about. Happiness, okay?
Yes.
If you don't know sadness, happiness has no relevance.
Absolutely.
Right?
That one
So-
doesn't exist.
Even with
Right.
faith, without a lack of faith or doubt, faith means nothing.
Right.
Great point.
So honestly, I think that empowerment that's there will ultimately prove one way or the other, but that's the ultimate goal, is that if you are going to love me, it's going to be because you're going to love me, not because you have to. Because you have the intellect to explore and come to that conclusion on your own.
Okay.
Good combo.
Yeah, and I'm like,
combo.
is that really, you know, is there such a question?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because
you only fail if you quit.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because that's where I go back to my creativity question, right? How many times did Edison develop a battery? Like
Something crazy, yeah.
almost 10,000 times, and they asked, you know, how could you
Light bulb?
light bulb. I said battery. Yeah, light bulb. Sorry, 10,000 times. It was literally like 9,000 something times he failed at making a light bulb. And so, in essence, you're like, does that prove that a light bulb doesn't exist? When he was in the 9,000 something range, that would be a very reasonable question to ask.
Yeah.
But Edison was saying, no, I have creativity. I simply haven't found the answer that works.
Right.
So I think that's kind of the same response there.
I mean, okay, so I grew up religious in the church, and so what was distilled on me was that, you know, to get into heaven, you had to believe that Jesus died on the cross. Now, that he died for our sins, he died for everybody's sins, right? You have to believe that. It is a belief in faith. It is a leap. Without it, you don't have to know anything else. You just have to know that, right?
Right.
Well, if you are therefore searching through creativity for a way to connect that, you are therefore saying, well, you know, might not be true. Like, you know, and does that really distill a faithful mindset? I mean, are you, it's like if you are married and you're looking at somebody else.
Okay.
And you're not going to go over there, right, and talk to that person. But the Bible says as soon as you have lust in your heart for somebody, you've committed adultery. So is it the same? I mean, like, I feel like that is, you know, you're looking at adultery, you know? You're looking at a way to say, oh, well, you know, doesn't have to be all faith. I could have a reason behind it.
Even to kind of chime in, and I get exactly where you're coming from. That's a really clear way to make that point. But even, for example, I can believe and I can love Jesus Christ in my heart, and I can read the Torah. Just because I read the Torah doesn't mean that I'm going to pursue that faith. But having that education of it doesn't mean that I'm not faithful. If anything, depending on the person itself, it could reaffirm your faith. You could look over at that other person and see someone that's beautiful, and it's like, oh, okay, I can understand that, but that doesn't mean that I don't love my wife or that I don't love my significant other. It can reaffirm that. Yeah. It all depends on the human element of who is making the action, how they receive it, and how it plays out inside of you.
Right.
No, and it would give you that bridge to be able to have that conversation or bring someone else. You know, if the ultimate goal of being Christian would be to lead someone else to Christ or something like that, the way that you would do that would not necessarily be with the iron fist of trying to impose that this is
tried that,
that
right?
this is the way. It says so right here. It just says so, and if you don't believe it, you don't understand it.
Yeah.
The way I believe to lead them would be to understand where they're starting, right? Which would be to read those texts.
And I think it's actually a really fun point that you bring up. I love this point because I think this is a perfect example for me. I'm stuck on my creativity thing. Is that you first have to ask, what is the definition of faith by Scripture, not by outside opinion?
Yeah.
Because Scripture says faith is the evidence of things unseen, the things hoped for, right? So it's still, even there, it's speaking in a scientific language.
Right.
It's saying that faith is based on the evidence of things unseen. And so even with your question about Jesus and accepting Jesus by faith, well, what's faith, right? I can go back and study history. And did he exist? I can study that. You know?
Right.
Eyewitness testimony, I can study that. So I think that's why the scientific method was developed out of that process, right? So
And in that, then
we literally have to wrap it up. We have like 1 minute.
The leaders done messed it up.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's where it gets off. It gets off. Yeah. Look, I mean, another freaking great show. We
Absolutely,
obviously
thank God.
answered all the questions on this subject that could ever be asked. So no more need to discuss this after this show ever.
If you do feel the need, though, there is a place for that. Go to our group page, find it on our website.
Look, I tell you, man, we got to hear a little taste of this performance before the show, and I'm telling you, this is one of the coolest songs we've had on the show in a long time. It's gonna blow up.
Except for last week.
Yeah, except last week.
Yeah, I'm not gonna let him do that to you, man.
Yeah, no, his performance.
He's in this one too.
I say the reason he's here is because how awesome that was, and he's like filling in on the guitar. Yeah, Mr. Cooley Bully, what are you about to play? Tell us where we can find it and take it away.
Thank you for tuning in. I am Cooley Bully. You can follow me everywhere. It's Cooley Bully. I got my main man, Daryl Douglas, with me from I Come Alive. And this is an exclusive just for you guys. I got a different message, so...
Have a nice day.
Don't forget to love yourself, baby. Don't forget to love yourself. Don't forget to love yourself, baby. It's okay to love yourself. You always working for everyone else. You always working for everyone else. But today I need you, baby. Love some you. That's right. Just love some you. It's pretty easy. Just love some you. And you in the back. Just love some you. Hold up. Now this for my lady. I see you, baby, working hard every day of the week. I was cooking and cleaning, and that baby won't let you sleep. Baby, I don't know how you do everything that you do, but today I need you to try a little something new. I said, don't forget to love yourself, baby. Don't forget to love yourself. Don't forget to love yourself, baby. It's okay to love yourself. You always working for everyone else. You always working for everyone else. But today I need you, baby. Love some you. Can you dig it? Just love some you. It's pretty easy. Just love some you. And you. Just love some you. Now I can't forget my fellas. Hold on. Ow. That man putting on his pants and he tying up his shoes. Already working overtime and he ain't got time to lose. Brother, I don't know how you do everything that you do, but today I need you to try a little something new. I say, don't forget to love yourself, brother. Don't forget to love yourself. Don't forget to love yourself, brother. It's okay to love yourself. You always working for everyone else. You always working for everyone else, but today I need you, brother. Love some you. Come on, just love some you. It's pretty easy. Just love some you. And you, brother. Just love some you. Hold up, D, let's break this thing down. Ow, good God, you're working too hard. You need to take a break from that job. Good God, you're working too hard. You need to take a break from that job. I said, good God, you're working too hard. You need to take a break from that job. Good God, you're working too hard. You need to take a break from the job. I said, don't forget to love yourself, baby. Don't forget to love yourself. Don't forget to love yourself, baby. It's okay to love yourself. Hey, you always working for everyone else. You always working for everyone else. But today I need you. Just love some you. Just love some you. 'Cause you can't spread love without love, you did. So make sure you love yourself. 'Cause I love myself, baby. You can tell, huh? Hey, one more time I said, don't forget to love yourself, baby. Don't forget to love yourself. Don't forget to love yourself, baby. It's okay to love yourself. You always working for everyone else. You always working for everyone else. But today I need you, baby. Love some you. I said it's easy. Love some you. Hold up. Just love some you. And you, Joe. You, Chris. You, Stephanie. Don't forget. You know what I'm saying? Come on. Ow! Yeah, man.
Yeah! Woo! Rock and roll, man.
Man, appreciate it.
Killer
Appreciate
song.
it. Yes,
Man,
sir.
I had just an awesome vibe to it. I loved it. What was the song
Yes.
called again?
Love yourself.
Right on. And where can we find it?
It's actually not out yet, so this was an exclusive just for you
Exclusive!
guys. But it's
Oh!
coming soon. Y'all look out for that. The
ALB
Love
exclusive.
Project. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Look for it on our YouTube channel. Hop over there. Check it out because I tell you it's going to be blowing up. It's going to be our #1
Thank
hit.
you,
I can
guys.
tell you now.
Thank
All
you
right.
so much.
Great show, guys. We'll see you next week.
How am I bad at clapping right now?